All right, hi. We're doing CSX Rule Book, January 2014. We're on Chapter 7, Roadway Worker and On-Track Safety. Introduction. This section defines to prevent the cars, locomotives, on-track equipment, and equipment from striking roadway workers, including contractors performing their duties. The rules of this section comply with the relevant regulations contained in the Code Federal Regulation Title 49, Part 214. 700 General Requirements of Engineering Department Employees. 701 CSX has overall responsibility for ensuring employees understand and comply with the rules governing on-track safety. The following are responsible for each of the roadway workers. Roadway worker. 1. Compliance with the operating rules. 2. Remaining in the clear of the tracks until required by the job task. 3. Determining the appropriate on-track safety has been authorized or established before following a track. 702. Only qualified roadway workers referred to the employee in charge establish and control working limits for the proposed on-track safety. 703. Do not perform any of the work that A. interferes with safe passage of the train, B. is not properly protected, C. is not in accordance with the operating rules, D. interfere with the property functions of switching machines and code apparatuses, E. interferes with the proper and functional signal control machines or code apparatus. 704. Do not operate any switch derail on a controlled track without permission of the train dispatcher. 705. An employee must obtain the required permission from the train dispatcher before taking a controlled location offline to maintain a communication with the train dispatcher or receiving permission. 706. When no designation supervisor is on site in case of an emergency, comply with the instructions of the chief train dispatcher. 707. Upon discovery of the damage to the facility, make the necessary repairs to report the occurrence to the designated supervisor and train dispatcher. 708. When applying removing temporary speed restrictions, make certain to pronounce all numbers digit by digit and comply with the following. Step 1. In responsible party engineering. Action may request directly to the train dispatcher. Step 2. Train dispatcher. Repeat the entire request and issue the restriction. Step 3. Engineering. Make certain that the proper signs are displayed. 709. When handling gasoline or other flammables, make certain to keep the material away from the following: operating internal combustion engines, smoking, or open flames. 710. All parked and secured equipment of the vehicles must remain at a minimum of 7 feet from the nearest rail of any of the track unless protected by the appropriate track protection. 711. A train list of the train line provided with the train dispatcher must record in writing by the receiving employee of the information purposes only, does not authorize any employee to follow the track. 712. Work performed by the contractors must be monitored and insured. No work activity equipment interferes with the safe passage of the trains. 2. Neither the contractor nor the equipment follows the track unless protection has been provided. 713. Employees operating switch derails are responsible for the position of the devices and must 1. Visually determine the switches are properly lined for intended route, and 2. Other permission from the train dispatcher, yard master, other designated employee before the switches and derails are spiked. 714. When hand-operated main track with switches are used before releasing an authority, the reporting and by a specific location employee holding an authority for the employee in charge of a work group, and must 1. Comply with switch position awareness form in ink. 2. Report the following train dispatcher location: switch operated, switch restored, locked in normal position. 3 times switches initially reserved. 4 times switches restored and locked in normal position. And 5. Name of the employee who operated the switch, retaining the switch position awareness form until the next tour of duty. 701. On-track safety job briefing requirements. 701. 1. Road worker group is a group of workers, regardless of the class of craft, working on the common task and involves with the following of the track. Other than 1 designated roadway worker in each of the group referred to as the employee in charge provides its on-track safety for all members of the group. The employee in charge is responsible for ensure working group receives the job briefing on the type of track safety to be established. 701. 2. Prior to starting work that require an employee to follow a track, employee in charge and other designated employee must perform a job briefing with the group discusses. 1. The task to be performed. 2. The sequence of the basic job steps. 3. The potential hazard requirement for the inspection, tools, equipment before use. 5. The personal protective equipment required. Type of the track, work protection provided. 7. Track of the track or tracks protected. 8. Time limits of the protection. 9. rules governing the protection when being provided. 10. The confirmation of all members of the group understanding the job briefing. 701.3. Before any member of the roadwork group files a track, the employee in charge must inform each of the road worker of the on-track safety protection established at the working location. 2. That there will be no change in the type of the on-track safety protection without notification of the change to each roadway worker. 701.4. At the beginning of each tour of duty, when the communications are not immediately available alone, a worker must conduct a job briefing communication with his or her work plan intended with the procedures for the onset track safety as soon as possible. His or her designated supervisor, employee designated by the supervisor. 702, 703 are reserved. 704, the EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority. Before occupying and following a controlled track to perform a short-term work, move on the track equipment, the employee in charge must have a copy of the current day dispatching bulletin for the territory involved, and to receive the authority to occupy the foul track, copy the authority to onto 1 form of the EC1, EC1E. 704.2. The radio communication is possible when requesting for the EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority provided with the following to the control station. The yard name, ID number, specific location, milepost, initial occupancy, specific track name or number, beginning with the ending limits of the request, direction of the travel, needed length necessary to complete with the work, and clear the track. 704.3. The copy of the form EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority to prescribe the prescribed format. 704. A form of EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority may be issued in case of emergency when conflicting train is stopped by the required limits provided with the train dispatcher confirming that the train is stopped, that the employee requesting the authority must hold a job briefing with the crew members of the stopped train, and 2. Identify with the train ID, locomotive number, location, record the information on the form EC1, EC1E. 704.5. When receiving a copy of the form EC1 or EC1E Line 1 authority, copy the following into the remarks of the section. 1. Required information not contained with the dispatcher bulletin. 2. The following required information on any preceding train and locomotive number, train number, direction of the travel, and for location. 704.6. After receiving a copy of the form EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority, conducts a job briefing with all the employees who will operate the work under the authority in multiple track territory. Ensure all employees covered with the protection acknowledgement for specific track to be occupied or followed. Ensures all occupants on track equipment initialed with a copy EC1, EC1E, and 4. If it has been 30 minutes more between the initial job briefing time and the track will be occupied and followed, read with the form EC1, EC1E allowed with conducting another job briefing. 704.7. When issued a form EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority to the following preceding train, do not occupy the track until conforming with the preceding train has passed the initial point of the occupancy by visual identifying the train and locomotive number, or by the locomotive number, visual confirmation with the train crew or train dispatcher. 704.8. The employee who received the EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority may permit the on-track equipment move to the non-associated work group with the limits of the authority after 1. Establishing an on-track safety for the employees. 2. Recording the proper name of the employee in charge of the work, other work group, or the nature of the work to be performed. 704.9. Do not operate any authority issued to another employee until the employee gives the permission to occupy the track within the authority, if granted permission of the opposing limits with the authority operators of opposing equipment, and must 1. Announce passing all mileposts conform understanding do not pass limit. And 7410. When operating a limit to EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority, employees must stop at each control point, conduct a job briefing verifying authority extends beyond the control point before proceeding not pass a preceding train without the permission protection of the train dispatcher. 3. Not occupy the foul any of the track not covered by the authority. 4. Not move any of the direction other than the one authorized. And 5. Not occupy a section of track after the section has been released and I reported. 704.11. Employees operating the limits of the EC1, EC1E Line 1 authority must make a radio announcement starting the initial occupancy location prior to the fouling of the occupying the track. 2. Prior to the passing of the control point, and 3. In non-signal territory prior to the passing each of the end of the side locations. 704.12. When making a radio announcement, employees must use positive identification and state 1. The track name number, 2. The direction of travel. 3. The name and the milepost of location. 7.4.13. When instructed by the train dispatcher to report specific locations, make sure the entire movement is clear of the location specified direction before reporting by the location. And 2. Receive new authority for the limits prior to the occupying any part of the portion of the track reported by. 704.14. Properly release the EC1, EC1, Line 1 authorities for the train batch dispatcher after the entire movement clears the limits of the authority. Make the every effort to clear the limits before the expiration of the time authorized. Do not consider an authority clear of the train dispatcher acknowledging of his or her understanding. 704.15. Unable clear limits of any authority before the time limit expires, contact the train dispatcher, request a time extension. If unable to contact the train dispatcher of the train dispatch, or if the train dispatcher does not grant time extension, do not exceed the restricted speed until the authority is cleared. 705. Individual train detection and train approaching warning and training coordination. 705.1. A lone worker may use individual train detection from on-track safety when he or she knows that he is required sight distance. He completed with the state of the traffic safety or the SOTS. 1. Before following the track. 2. Has access to the working radio. 3. Performing the route maintenance of the minor repairs that may not affect the safe passage of the train and on-track equipment. 4. Has completed with the required job briefing with the communication is available. 5. Is not performing a work interlocking control point or remotely controlled hump yard. And 6. Has established a place of safety. 7. Has the ability to see, hear, and approach the train on-track equipment, and that ability that is not impaired with the noise, light, weather conditions, passing equipment, and adjacent tracks on any other condition. 8. Is not prevented with the hearing of the approach of the train, on-track equipment, nor power-operated tools, road maintenance machinery, is in use. 9. Maintains required sight distance and has unobstructed ability to reach the predetermined place safety at least 15 seconds before the train moving at the maximum of the authorized track speed reaches his or her location. 705.2. When using the train detection, do not perform any work that interferes with the ability to see, hear the approach of a train. On-track equipment maintain a constant lookout of the approaching trains on on-track equipment. 3. Keep the completed safety on statement of on-track safety. 1. Form in position of all times when following the track. 4. When a train on-track equipment approaches, move the designated place for the safety at least 15 seconds before the train or on-track equipment reaches the location. 705. 3. Using train approach warning for on-track safety only if 1. At least 2 qualified road workers are working together. 1 employee is designated as the watchman. 2 employees can reach an established place of the safety at least 15 seconds before the train or on-track equipment reaches the location. 3. A method of communication from the approach of the train is established. Employees had a job briefing, all conforming the understanding of the responsibility. 5. Employees performing the route of the maintenance, minor repairs, and that will not affect the safe passage of the trains or on-track equipment. 6. Watchman lookout maintains required sight distance. Watchman lookout unrestricted ability to see, hear, or approaching the trains or on-track equipment. And 8. Watchman lookout has access to working radio. 705.4. When the employee protected with the train approaching warning must 1. Remain in the position that allows the receiving train to approach warning with the watchman, and 2. Immediately move the predetermined place of safety when warning is received. 705.5. When the train approaching the warning is used to protect more than 1 employee, the watchman must be equipped with and using the following device to provide a warning: whistle, air horn, white disc flag when visibility is good, white light, and red if usable with visibility is poor. 705.6. When the train approaching warning is used to protect only 1 employee, audible visual warnings are not required when the advanced watchman is not required and watchman can physically touch the employee being protected. 705.7. The employee providing with the watchman duties of the train approaching the warning must 1. Not follow any of the tracks unnecessary to provide with warning. 2. Not perform any task unrelated to provided warning or that interfere with the providing warning is the employee being protected. 3. The provided warning as if the train hour on the track equipment movement is approaching at the maximum authorized speed allowed. 4. Provide warning sufficiently in advance to allow all the workers watchmen to reach the predetermined place safety at least 15 seconds before the train on-track equipment reaches the location. 705.8. When necessary to establish on-track safety and controlled tracks with the train coordination and the employee in charge must 1. Visually determine the train is stopped. 2. Conduct the job briefing with the crew of the train. 3. Determine the limits of the train authority. 4. Determine the method of operation related rules are in effect. 5. Instruction to the train crew not move unless directed by the employee in charge, and instruct the train crew not release any authority until notified with the employee in charge that the safety to do so. 7059. Once a train coordination is established, the employee in charge must ensure that no members of the working group follow any of the track outside of the train authority. 7510. When the train coordination on track safety is no longer required, ensure all roadway workers are clear of the track, and 2. Inform the train crew that the protection is no longer required and the instruction of the train dispatcher will govern the movements. 706. Working limits of non-controlled tracks. 706.1. Establish the working limits of the non-controlled tracks. Make prior arrangements for the employee responsible for the tracks and tracks involved to ensure the tracks are not occupied by the equipment not under the control of the employee in charge. And 3. Make the tracks inaccessible all trains, locomotives, and on-track equipment. 706.2. Non-controlled tracks inaccessible for all locations, locomotives, on-track equipment. One of the following methods of flagman posted the instruction capability to hold the movements clear of the limits and limiting lining the locking switches with an effective locking device in the position that prevents movement into the track. C. Apply the G-rail as locked with the effective locking device at the location that prevents the movement into the work limits. And D. Discontinue the rail to prevent movement into the working limits. 706.3. When remotely switched to the provide access to non-controlled tracks, the employee in charge must verify that the following employee responsible for the operating remotely controlled switches. 1. Switches are aligned with the position that prevents access into the tracks. Locking devices blocking have been applied with the switching to prevent operation. And 3. Locking or blocking will not be removed until the permission has been granted by the employee in charge. 706.4. Working limits are not required for the non-controlled tracks when moving on the track equipment from the clear location to the work site or the back. When moving the equipment to the non-controlled track, 1. Make arrangements for the employee who is responsible for the movement of the tracks, and 2. Make all movements prepared to stop within 1/2 of the range of the vision, not exceeding 10 miles an hour. 707. Working limits of the controlled track or conditional stop. 707.1. When long working time limits will be necessary, employee in the charge must request dispatcher to be issued. The request must be made at least 14 hours in advance, including subdivision date, time limits, name of the initial employee in charge, specific track limits at the either post control point and main track yard limits, and any instruction related to posting of the signs. 707.2. Before any member of the working group files or occupies the track within the working limit with the employee in charge, 1 must obtain a current dispatcher bulletin that contains the dispatcher message governing the work limits for the day. 2. Contact the train dispatcher conforming the dispatcher bulletin date and dispatcher message number of the working limits. 3. Inform the train dispatcher if the signal system will be effective. 4. When the control points are within working limits, inform the train dispatcher how the trains will move through the control point. In the multiple track territory, the conform of the train dispatcher with the track will be occupied with the workforce in which the track will be used to pass the trains. 6. Conform the train dispatcher to use the position switches without working limits within the working limits. Receive the train dispatcher copy of the dispatcher bulletin and authority number of the train dispatcher, OK, initials, and time authorized. Ensure signals are properly posted. 707.3. Signs are required in conjunction with long-term working limits must be clean and easily recognizable, posted not more than 30 minutes in advance of the effective time, as long as the employee in charge has the ability to communicate with any of the train equipment that approaches the working limit. 707.4. In permanent conditions preventing the display of the wayside sign as directed by the rule, the train dispatcher must be notified. The dispatcher message must be issued stating how the signs are displayed. 707.5. Unless otherwise, the dispatcher message for the form EC1 wayside will be placed at the beginning of the end of the restriction cited with the chart below. The number of tracks. 1. The sign placement. Place the sign next to the affected track. 2. Place the sign if the number of the tracks are 2. Place the sign on the field side on the outside of the affected track. 3 or more number of tracks. Place the sign on the field side affected track from the outside and the next affected track from the middle track. 7. Place the warning signs at least 2 miles, but not more than 1.5 miles from the beginning of the working limits on each end. 707. Place conditional stop signs in the following locations, beginning of the limits of each end, each junction point, and other locations specified with the dispatcher message. 707.8. The employee charged responsible for all the train on-track movement within the working limits must make a written record of the prescribed form of all movements permitted with either entering moving the working limit. 707.9. Before granting permission for the movements limits is not part of the working group to enter and move within the working limits or the employee in charge. Assertion that all men equipped with the warning group are clear of the limits of the portion of the limits on which the movement will be authorized to operate, and to determine the track portion or the track for its safety movement. 70710. The employee in charge must communicate with the following information when granting permission from the train or on-track equipment to enter long-term working limits with the following verbiage. One locomotive number of the train, name of the track on the equipment operator, name of the employee in charge on the work limits, multi-mile posts, and location of the working limits, specific location of working limits for the train on-track equipment may occupy for the permitted operating speed of the train on-track equipment that must be one of the following: restricted at specific speed, authorized speed. 70711. The employee in charge may permit a train or on-track equipment to proceed at one intermediate location working limits and stop the safe to do so. The employee in charge must clear the movement through the entire remaining limits. 70712. After granting permission on the on-track to a train on-track equipment that is not part of the working group to the enter the moving of the work limits, the employee in charge must allow all men to equip and the working group to follow the track and to verify the movement is clear of the limits. 70713. The employee in charge must plan to have all the employees' equipment clear the working limits before the expiration date. Before clearing, the authority makes certain that all men and equipment working in the rear group are clear of the limits of the track. Safety normal operation train dispatcher had advised and any of the necessary restriction for the movement. All trains and on-equipment that were clearly to the enter and move the limits, they have cleared the limits and properly removed the signs as the work authority expires or is canceled. 70714. When an employee charges determines the track cannot be cleared by the expiration time, he or she must take one of the following actions at least 5 minutes before the expiration: obtain a new authority from the train dispatcher, post a flag at each warning sign. 708. Flag protection to establish emergency work limits. 708, and it's unable for the train dispatcher to establish working limits for the flag protecting the following circumstances: an emergency situation to protect defects of track bridges, culverts, and other track structures, an unusual situation being unable to clear the authority before it expires. 708, do not use flag protection when weather conditions obstruct and affect visibility except in the emergency. 708, when using a flag protection, maintain in both directions until the condition is corrected. Notify the train dispatcher protection that has provided with all the affected trains have been notified. 708. Do not allow trains on-track equipment to proceed with beyond the point flagged until the employee in charge provides the flagman with written instruction. Flagman shows the instruction locomotive operator and equipment operator. 709. Maintenance lockout and no check functions and local control. Electronic Signal Specialist (ESS) must be given the permission to place the control point into the maintenance lockout. No check functions provided with the following information: the electronic signal specialist, who must then provide the information with the train dispatcher or title name and employee receiving the permission, track destination, track limits, and timeline limits. 709. Before testing, inspecting control point in a maintenance lockout or no check functions, the receiving employee must read the permission of the electronic signal specialist. The electronic signal specialist must confirm the repeated information is correct, and 3. Proper on-track safety must be provided by the following of the track. 709.3. Once provided with the main protection, maintenance lockout, no check functions until the employee who has received the protection released by the electronic signal specialist. Before removing the block devices, the electronic signal specialist must communicate the following: train dispatcher, employee title name, train dispatcher, the limits to be released. The information must be released by the electronic signal specialist, informed by the employee releasing the protection. 709.4. The train dispatcher must give the permission to control the point in local control when making the request permission to provide with the following information: title name of the employee requesting permission, track designation, track limits, and time limits. 709.5. Before testing, inspecting control point and a local control received, the employee must repeat the permission to the train dispatcher. The train dispatcher must confirm and repeat if the information is correct. And 3. Protect on safety must be provided with the following of the track. 709.6. Once provided with the maintain protection and local control until the employee who received the protection releases to the train dispatcher. Before removing the block devices, the employee must communicate with the following: train dispatcher, employee title name, track designation, limits to be released. The train dispatcher must repeat the information. Employee releasing the protection must confirm to it. 710, removing a control track from the service. Removing the control track from the service only after receiving the authority of the train dispatcher under the following condition. A, the track is rendered inoperative active nature. The track is disrupted caused by the proper restoration cannot be made. The construction work necessity temporary removed from the service. 710, if necessary to control track of the out of service qualified employee may request that the train dispatcher and authority define the limits. The employee can copy the authority to the form EC1, EC1E, line 11. 710.3. All train and on-track equipment must be obtained with the permission of the employee in charge of the out-of-service limits before following with the occupying the limits. 710.4. The employee in charge out-of-service limits directs the all train on-track equipment movements within the limits. When granting the mission of the train equipment to the enter and move the limits, when the employee in charge must make a written record of the following: name of the employee operating locomotive, the employee in charge of the equipment, time of the permission was granted, the time of the train equipment cleared with the limits. 710.5. The proprietor of returning the task track to the service, the employee in charge must 1. Notify the train dispatcher any restriction necessary to ensure the safe passage of the train on-track equipment. Ensure track is clear and of all trains and on-track equipment, and track is not clear of on-train track equipment, be governed by the train dispatcher instructions before returning to the services. 711 railroad crossings at the grade and drawbridges. 711.1. An automatic remote-controlled railroad crossing at the grade insulated within the track of equipment that does not shunt the track circuit must stop before the following of the railroad crossing at the grade and not proceed after stopping until it is seen clear that it's safe to proceed. 711 12. Non-insulated track equipment that does not shunt the track circuit will proceed the signal indication of the automatic remotely controlled railroad crossing at the grade. A signal governing movement over the railroad crossing the grade is stop. Non-conflicting method move is evident stop before the following of the crossing and contact the train dispatcher. A. If the train dispatcher has control of the intersection line, receive the permission of the train dispatcher to make the desired movement. 2. Provide the specific amount of the equipment that will make the movement to the train dispatcher. 3. To report the clear of the train dispatcher on all equipment has been cleared of the crossing. B. If the train dispatcher does not have control of the intersecting line, the signal is equipped with a time release non-immediate with the conflicting movement is evident. On-track equipment or the employee in charge must operate the time release in accordance with the instruction. The leading of the equipment must be stopped before the reaching, but not more than 258 feet off from the stop signal, remaining at all locations during the time of the release interval. If the signal does not change in the indication of the expiration of the time result interval, lead until the track will be pulled a stop signal at least 30 feet, stopping clear of all intersection line. The on-track equipment will wait a period of time equal to the time release interval that, if not immediately conflicting movement is evident with the on-track equipment, may proceed. C. If the train dispatcher does not have control of the intersection line, the signal is equipped with the time release non-immediate conflicting movement is evident. When the lead unit on-track equipment will pull by the stop signal at least 30 feet to stop clearing the intersection line. Wait 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes wait, no immediate conflicting movement is evident. It is safe to do so. The on-track equipment may proceed. 711.3. The railroad crossing of the grade with the automatically remote-controlled on-track equipment that stop before the following of the cross. Properly line the gate switches and derails in accordance with the special instruction. Proceed after the way is seen to be clear. If safe to do so, restore the gate switches, derails, normal position in accordance with the special instruction. 711.4. On-track equipment must not stand by the opposing signals governing the movement over a railroad crossing at the grade unless the protection has been established. 711.5. Obtaining permission for the drawbridge tender before passing the home signal drawbridge or following the movable span of the non-signal drawbridge. 712. Operating machines and on-track equipment. 712.1. Employees who operate the roadway maintenance machines must pass a test certifying the employee understands how to apply the proper on-track safety procedure for the roadway maintenance machines. 2. Receive training, be qualified as a roadway maintenance machine operator. As an employee in charge, anyone not meeting the requirements must only operate the machine under the direct supervision of a qualified operator. 712.2. The on-track equipment must be inspected before it is operated to make certain it is safe and in compliance with the CSX standards and federal regulations. 712.3. Each of the track on roadway maintenance machine or highway rail vehicle must be inspected each of the calendar day before use and have operators manuals located on the equipment. 712.4. The inspection of on-track railroad on-track roadway maintenance machines of the highway rail vehicles must certain each of the equipment with the following: effective brakes, operable horn and devices changing the direction, alarms, operable headlights and strobe lights, fire extinguisher, first aid kit and flagging kit, safety glasses, operable windshield wipers, locking pins, and if equipped with the turntables, and operable heater and ventilation system. 7.12.5. When inspecting on a track that is not roadway maintenance machine or highway rail vehicle, make certain that it is equipped with the following: effective brakes, lock-up devices that are in place, audible warning signs unless the operator is equipped with a whistle. 7.12.6. The roadway maintenance machines must have a pressurized cab, tamper baluster regulators, tie bed, scrapers, and undercutters. 7.12.7. If a component listed with the FRA safety required but the component is defective with the condition will not make the equipment unsafe to operate, then complete the attachment of the FRA safety expectation tag to the defective machine or high rail vehicle at the near operator's control panel. Report the condition to the employee in charge and document the defect with the machine failure report form. 7.12.8. In the defective conditions, make the machine unsafe to operate. 1. Do not operate the equipment until repaired. 2. Affix the out of service tag to the ignition switch and similar to devices if the equipment cannot be repaired. 3. Report the condition to the employee in charge. Document on the daily inspection report. 7.12.9. If the defective conditions do not make the machine unsafe to operate, the machine may be operated for up to 7 days with the defect. 7.12.10. When the machine repairs are completed, the documentation repairs with the machine logbook, remove the pre-address for the FRA safety expectation tag, and mail to Brant Parker shop at 1 CSX Road, Richmond, Virginia 233-286-5055. Any piece of equipment vehicle large enough to carry the instructional manual must have the document of each equipment and or vehicle. 7.12.12. Before occupying a control track, the leading and the trailing paces of the on-track equipment working with the travel together with the group must have a flagging device listed below. A single piece on the track equipment operating independently, including high rail vehicles, must also have these flags devices: 4 red fuses, 2 red flags, and 1 white light. 7.12.13. On-track equipment required to have operable lights must have those limit lights on when the equipment is moving. 7.12.14. On-track equipment not equipped with lights must have the white light into the front and the red light on the rear when operating at night, in tunnels, in fog, or other weather conditions that limit the visibility. 7.12.15. When operating on-track equipment, employees must ensure all occupants are seated with the permanently installed seats. 2. The instruct occupants to look out in both directions. 3. Specific employee duties when the equipment must be removed from the tracks. 4. Apply the brakes gradually unless the condition requires stopping in the shortest possible distance. 5. Communicate to the workers on and about the tracks before getting closer than 15 feet to them. And 6. Perform required maintenance tests and authorize adjustments in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. 7.12.16. When operating on a track, employees must not use the equipment for any other purposes other than company business. Permit the tools, materials, obstruct the operation, brakes, and warning devices. 3. Restrict the interfere with the intended function of any device and equipment. D. Permit the employees to ride on the equipment unless unauthorized to do so with the proper authority. Employees are riding as part of their assigned duties. Apply any device on any track of the equipment unless approved by the director of worker and equipment. F. Till the equipment is doing exceeding the brake capacity of the towing machine. And G. Operate the equipment that is loaded beyond its maximum capacity. 7.12.17. When operating a track equipment, operating speeds that permits the stopping of 1/2 of the range of vision do not exceed the speed authorized for the trains on the same track are listed on the table below, whichever is less. The type of equipment in operation: rail detector car must not exceed 40 miles an hour. A railway highway vehicle less than 110,001 GVWs, forward at 40 miles an hour and 20 miles in reverse. A railway highway vehicle more than 10,000 GVWs. Sorry, the other one was less than. GVWs, forward 30 miles per hour, reverse 10 miles an hour. The type of equipment operation: rail grinders are not to exceed 50 miles an hour. Palace, shoulder clean, and lorem ditch 40 miles an hour. Tamper, baluster, regulators, other self-propelled on-track equipment that is not previously designated 30 miles an hour. A bureau cranes are 20 miles an hour. When pulling or pushing, pulling a push car, 30 miles an hour. When pushing a push car, straight track, 10 miles an hour, 5 miles on the curves. All on-track equipment moving over the self of the garroted frogs through the spring rail side for the frog, 1 mile an hour. Type of the equipment of operation through the limits of the long-term working limits when no more than one vehicle is operating with the limits of the signal EC11 or EC1E line 1 authority. It must not exceed 20 miles per hour unless the higher speed is authorized by the employee in charge. And the type of equipment is the operating or operation operating through the turnouts using facepoint, hand-operated switches, facepoint frogs, overpowered operated switches over the RR, crossing at the grade, passing the people working around the track, passing the passenger waiting for the train at the passenger stop 5 miles per hour. 712.18 when using the push carts not load beyond the railway capacity and load before ramping on the on or off flat cars. 712 transport heavy duty materials on the push car trailers when coupled behind the self-propelled on-track equipment does not permit the riders on the purpose loaded but the heavy materials except in the case emergency only and after taking the necessary safeguards. 712.20 when using personal carriers, one comply with all the instructions safety decals. 2 pulling a personal carrier, do not push and pull other push carts with the same equipment. 3 position with them in a game consistent with the enabling pulling with the carrier in either direction. If they must be pushed, place the carrier in the trailing position at the first opportunity. 712.21 making the following minimum distance between the machine and you and operating of the machine ahead for the descriptive activity when working with 40 feet of unless different distance and specified ballast regulators must maintain 200 feet, traveling 200 feet, ballast regulators must maintain 400 feet, and bunching 40 feet unless the speed limit is 5 miles an hour less than maintaining sufficient distance to prevent an accident. 712.22 the red zone on track equipment that does not have extendable parts as follows: from the 15 feet on the front of the equipment to the 15 feet behind the equipment, and 2 from the front from the sides of the equipment as defined by the job briefing. 712.23 the red zone on the track equipment has extendable parts as follows: from the 15 front of the equipment to 15 feet behind the equipment, a minimum of 15 feet beyond the maximum reach of the extendable parts of the equipment on all sides. 712.24 employees must not enter the red zone or other equipment until the operator notifies the employee it is safe to enter the red zone. Establish eye contact and receive verbal notification employees wish to enter the red zone. 712.25 operators on track equipment must not resume work when employees are located within the red zone of the equipment until the hand holding of the job briefing establishes safe work procedures. 712.26 employees with the backhoe operators must take the following actions before the employees enter the red zone of the backhoe. The operator and employees must establish the eye contact. The backhoe operator must receive the verbal communication from the employee stating that the employees wish to enter the red zone, and the backhoe operator must not notify the backhoe operator must notify the employees when it's safe to enter the red zone. Employees must not enter until it's safe to do so. The backhoe operator must stop all the movements in the equipment, place the backhoe in neutral, and the backhoe operator must remove the raised hands from the control of the boom in the bucket. 712.27 when operating on-track equipment which is necessary to inspect a switch, stop before reaching the switch, inspect the switch, restore the switch to the normal position, make it certain that the switch fits properly, lock the switch, and then proceed over the switch. 712.28 when a main track switch has been lined for the movement of on-track equipment for the other reasons for the switch must be restored to the normal position and locked and tested spring switches must be hand-lined before operating them. And 712.29 when approaching highway, railway crossing of the grade, be prepared to stop short of the crossing. Do not operate the on-track movement over the crossing unless this way is known to be clear, and if necessary, use flagmen wearing a line yellow and orange vest to stop the highway traffic. 712.30 do not operate the on-track equipment before the passenger train that receiving the discharged passengers, the station or the station platform. 712.31 when operating behind the train, employees must not follow a moving train closer than 600 feet and approach the standing train closer than 200 feet unless necessary to clear the track. 712.32 when operating equipment with the high rail vehicles on the track, they will be passed by the train on an adjacent track. If it is safe to do so, stop and exit the vehicle. If it is not safe to practical to stop, exit the vehicle and exit the vehicle, they will reduce the speed to 10 miles an hour and maintain a lookout for the objects falling and swinging from the train. 712.33 when a train is approaching with a working location on an adjacent track, ensure all employees' equipment are clear of the adjacent track. Secure the rotating machinery to prevent the fouling of the adjacent track and lower all the buckets and boom attachments for the rest of the boom parallel to the track and load line tightened. 71234, when passing a base being passed by the train on the adjacent track, inspect the passing for the defects as follows. Stand at least 30 feet from the passing train when possible. If 2 or more employees are present, post at least one of the employee on each side of the train. 2, promptly notify the train crew of the result of the inspection. 71235, when handling rail cars, make a certain only on hand 2 cars at the time, unless using a brand type of the vehicle car mover, and 2, test the railway car air brakes when required as specified. Use the CSS to air brake and train handling rules. 71236. A qualified CSX employee must directly supervise and instruct any of the non-CSX persons to operate the equipment on the CSX track. The CSX employee is responsible for establishing on-track safety, obtaining the required authorities, and complying with all rules. 713. Operating cranes. When operating cranes, employee must operate a crane. Employee is not qualified to operate unless under the direct supervision of the qualified operator. Move a load over the people. Permit anyone to underload in between the load or magnetic attachment. And 713.2. The following signals must be given before a crane is moved: 2 short blasts of the whistle before making a forward move, or 3 short blasts before the whistle making a reverser move. 713.3. Do not allow any part of the boom or the cable equipment to come within 12 feet of any of the power lines or any other overhead aerial cables until all the following safety precautions have been taken. Signal communications cable lines that may remain in operation at discretion of the responsibility qualified person on site, and after precautions have been taken to protect the lines from the physical damage. The owner of the power line is present on site, determines the voltage required to proceed to de-energize and the ground lines. De-energize the ground line and the ground lines. Verify the power lines are de-energized and is safe to work. After the power lines are de-energized, grounded, verified to be safe, and qualified to the person on site, the work may continue to provide all on-safety aspects are covered, and after the work has been completed, to make certain that all the booms, cables, and equipment are at least 12 feet clear of the power lines before power is restored to the lines. 713.4. Only the designated employee is allowed to give the signals, but the crane operator, when the given signals, use the standard crane direct signals, having a clear understanding of the crane operator regarding the moving meaning of the signal to be used. Remain in position in a clear view of the crane operator. Use the following hand signals when directing the crane mover. This one's main hoist with the hand over the head, knocking on the head. Main hoist, auxiliary hold underneath the elbow. A hoist load is a your right arm extended out with the finger whirling. Hoist load slowly. You're holding your point of your finger above your hand. Stop is to swing your hand out to the left side. Raise the boom, giving the right-handed thumbprint. Thumbs up. Raise the boom and lower the load. Either the up and down stroke of the thumbs up. Lower the load is a point down with the lower circle. Lower the load slowly. Lower the is a point down circle with a hand underneath it. Emergency stop is wave your hand to the left and to the right, or left or right violently. Lower the boom is thumbs down. Lower the boom and raise the boom is fingers out and in. With the fingers down, your thumb down. Swing boom is the point of the direction. Swing of the boom slowly, hand over the swing of the direction. Travel movable equipment. Rotate your hands in a circle towards you. Retract the boom. Two fingerprints. 2 hands out. Even. Retract the boom. Hit your chest. Extend the boom. Thumbs out. And straight ahead of you, extend the boom, thumb in on the chest to the left hand, right pocket. In Doug, everything is the hands closed behind your hands closed. Chapter 8: On Track Worker Qualifications.